All right, hey y'all, welcome back to Between Sessions. My name is Ebony Harris.
And I'm Elisa Bokeen, and we are two brown chicks changing the face of therapy on both
Both sides
sides of the
of the
couch.
couch. Welcome back to a new episode. Today we have James Harris of Men to Heal, and we're excited to have a conversation about Black men and mental health. Elisa, I know you want to do the introduction.
Yeah. Well, we've been following you, James. We follow each other. So we had to slide into the DMs as we often do and get you on here because I know that a lot of what you talk about is the importance of men, in particular, Black, brown men, doing their healing work, coming to therapy. But we want to give you the floor so that you can tell us a little bit more about the work that you do and why you started it.
Yeah. So again, appreciate you for having me. I definitely don't take it for granted that y'all even reached out or that I'm able to be seen. So,
Yeah.
so I'm James Harris. I am a husband, father, veteran, entrepreneur, and a therapist. Um, Started a movement called Men to Heal to get men back focused on the overall wellness, our mental health, physical health, and of course, our emotional health. Because oftentimes I viewed it as something that was lacking within the world, not just specifically to one region or one demographic. So that's why I took on this task of doing this. And when I was younger, I was a ward of the state. I emancipated myself at 16. So being a ward of the state,
Mm.
therapy was one of those things that was a requirement, like a check in a box, it felt like. So
Yes.
it wasn't a cohesive experience. It wasn't no building rapport. I'm this young Black kid from the projects, and all the therapists were older white people. So for me, therapy just was a poor experience when I was younger. Fast forward, joined the army, 8 years, two deployments, one Iraq, one Afghanistan.
Wow.
I wanted to be whole for my family, and I knew I was different after my deployment. So I tried therapy again, and this time it was something similar. It just wasn't a pleasant experience. It was the therapist didn't have combat experience. They didn't look like me. They were just talking from what they learned in the book, So I realized that was a lot of the reason why a lot of veterans tend to go to the groups opposed to therapy, or nothing at all.
Mm.
So for me, it was on something, this is something I got to do. So let me figure out, which avenues I needed to take. And that's what I did. So I paused entrepreneurship. Um, so before I had a bachelor's, I had two properties and two profitable businesses. So I paused that, went to finish school because after I was emancipated myself from the group home at 16, I lived, and then of course I went to college. And my sophomore year is when I joined the army. I decided I didn't want to sneak back in the dorms anymore to live or
Mm.
whatever. Summer break, winter break, and the school breaks you get. Like I was sneaking back in the dorm room because I ain't had nowhere to go. So my
Right.
sophomore year is when I joined the army, and then while army doing entrepreneurship and stuff like that. So pausing entrepreneurship after my army time, it was when I decided to go back. So I went back. I got a bachelor's in clinical psychology, and then I went straight and got my master's in clinical mental health counseling, and then of course started my licensing process, and then here we are.
Wow. What a journey. And I think what I was struck by when I'm listening to all of this, just all of the ways you could have been discouraged from continuing to go to therapy or continuing your healing, from the experiences you were having to the environments that you were in, being a black man in the military, and then just kind of the talk around being vulnerable and getting healing and seeking out support. So I'm struck by your commitment to continue going and continue seeking it out, and not just seeking it out, but like you said at the beginning, being able to be seen, because how many men need to see people like you, that they're out there and that they are offering spaces where they can begin to heal.
Right. Right.
Yeah, and so I guess I understood the benefits of therapy. I just figured I had poor examples and experiences. So I didn't want to cast that on the entire field. That's why I continue to do the work and continue to seek out, like, all right, let me figure it out. Let me do this. Let me show that you can be on the other side of it and obtain, the gratifications of it, the lived experience from it. And it's been helping because other people felt the same way. They are now in tune with their growth and their journey of how therapy has been beneficial for them. So,
Did
it's a
you hear
different.
that, folks? Did you hear what James just said? He said, even though he had some negative experiences, he didn't give up on therapy as a whole. Because I think that's one of the things we often hear is like, well, I tried it and the therapists, I couldn't connect with them. And then they just give up on therapy as a whole. So I'm so glad that you said that and
Yeah,
that you didn't give up.
Yeah,
right.
so also though, I mean, I want to say though, like a lot of people don't know that you can interview different therapists or you can have a consultation session for free
Exactly.
and figure out who is the best fit for you in your situation. Whether you're asking them, are they LGBTQ plus confirming, or are they, have they ever worked with black people? Are they experienced with trauma or whatever the case is? But a lot of people don't know that. They just figure like, oh, the insurance company said I got to come here, and they don't do the research, and or they call somebody who, say, yeah, I got availability. Then they get into it, and then they realize it's not a good fit, so they stop therapy altogether, not knowing that it's not the entire field who look like
Right,
this,
right, right,
or
right.
who do sessions like this, but it gets that blanket um shadow based on that. So I just wish or hope that it's more people learning to, well, let me talk to somebody else just to make sure, or let me go and try this person just to make sure, or let me see because this person looked like me, it's probably a similar experience, opposed to, I didn't work with this one so I'm out.
Yeah. And it's funny because as you were talking, what Elisa said struck me. One was your experiences in therapy. I have a history earlier in my career of working in group homes with kids. And the way they did it was very different though. We go like 2 or 3 times a week. We would do group and individual. So they did see us regularly. I think that was helpful. And to your point, it is a lot of brown and black girls. And so I was a black therapist. It was one other, but then some of the other therapists didn't look like them, right? They were white people. Um, but I do think that makes a significant difference. And then the other part that you made me think of is the fact that you recognize, instead of, like Elisa said, you decide, instead of deciding, oh, this isn't for me, you even said, okay, there needs to be more representation, right? Like I need to pursue this, and to choose to pause like you said, a successful business and then move into this is amazing, because we often hear the reason why men don't pursue therapy as a career is because of finances, right? Because they're supposed to start making money as soon as possible. So I appreciate you sharing that experience.
Yeah. So for me, like, just being a hustler and being in the circumstances that I was raised in and had to endure, like, I can get money doing anything. I can get money anywhere, because that's my mindset. I'm always going to be drawn to monetization of whatever product it is. So for me, it wasn't about the money. I just know, like, I have to give back as a service person, as a person who want a better community, as a person who want to model certain characteristics and behaviors, not only for my daughters, but for daughters everywhere and for boys everywhere and men everywhere who are, you know, going to be in those positions. So I just want to ensure that people are getting as much as they can, So for me to step to take a break and try something else and make it work like that was the last thing that I was worried about. Like, it might not work or I'm not gonna make money. Like, I'm always gonna eat.
I love
I'm
that.
gonna
I
figure
love
it
that.
out.
Yeah.
So speaking to that, how do you think like gender and masculinity stereotypes impact the mental health of black and brown men?
So I mean, to be real with you, I stay away from the traditionalism of those talks because I find them to be ignorant or either just social constructs, not really conducive to the advancement of people, not just men, not just women, but people as a whole, just based on the ideologies that sometimes are assimilated with them. Men are supposed to do this, or women are supposed to do this, and boys don't supposed to do it. Like, those things to me are detrimental to human growth because some things are human qualities, not
Right.
specific gender qualities, so it's just so many examples where I feel that, it's poor minded to even incite those things in not only society but in your specific home with your children, like, and again, this is just my, view of my anecdotal experience, but to tell a young boy he can't play with an easy bake oven, to me is ignorant.
Right.
Like this young boy is not going to grow up and have to cook for himself or whatever, or to say that girls are supposed to, do XYZ and they can't do, nah, like eventually people are going to grow up and interact with different people who don't look like them. So they should have those experiences, and they should be able to, you know, understand that people are different and people have different identities outside of what you see, So for me, I stay away from the masculine and the, although, because it's poor ideology. Even the alpha male concept, I stay away from those talks because those are ignorant too, And if you look at, to me, if you look at an alpha male on paper, reading it, you like, oh man, this is a butthole. Like, who want to hang around this person? You know what I'm saying? Like, when you think about it, it's always designed to somebody being dominant or overbearing, or, you know what I'm saying? Like, no, you can be a steadfast, humble male without inserting your dominance or annoying somebody else. And realistically, like, that animal mindset is just foreign to people and they don't even realize it. Because if you're gonna adapt the animal mindset, if you think about it, like right now, if I ask y'all who is the king of the jungle, what would you say?
Is
I
it the
was gonna
lion?
say, I was gonna say Tarzan.
I thought it was a lion. Look, I don't even know.
Okay, yeah. So a lion, right? That
Okay.
from an animalistic mindset, you would say the lion. But
Right.
if I ask you, the lioness or the lion, which one I'm gonna go out and hunt?
The
Oh,
What would you
lioness, yeah, she's the one that's making things happen.
exactly? And if I say which one of them have the long curly locks, what would you say?
oh, the lion, right?
The lion. So,
Yeah,
like, it's,
that's
you know
funny.
what I mean? So
Yeah,
people
yeah,
pick
yeah.
people pick and choose which alpha is masculine and feminine. You know what I mean? Which to me is crazy. Like, don't even associate with it if you're gonna pick and choose those characteristics. Same way people pick and choose which religion points of the text to follow and
Right.
stuff like that. So
Yeah, yeah. So it kind of sounds like what you're saying is those stereotypes can really limit us, right? Like they
Hmm.
can really limit men, they can limit everybody, right? Like all genders, it limits us when you kind of buy into these things that when you look at it, like from a big picture, they don't even connect with what it is, the messages that they're trying to send. If you look at even just nature doesn't even operate in that way. It's kind of what I hear you saying.
correct, yeah. And think about it. Like, it's the seahorse, the male carry the baby. You know what I mean? Like, so my view is like, no, be a good human. Don't worry about the gender specific stuff, because you do that, you're gonna be handicapped in one area. You know what I'm saying? If you're raising your boys not to cook or play with dolls or whatever, like when they get older and have a family, that's gonna be the mindset. So now you dating this guy and you realize, like, this cat never cooked for me. I'm doing all the cleaning and you know what I mean? Like, that's how he was raised. That was instilled in him. And those systems and cycles are constantly perpetuated. Like, I've seen it so many times, like shopping for my daughter. Like, I'm more gender inclusive as far as everything. Like, my favorite color is pink, and her favorite color is blue, and she knew that, like, from when she was smaller. You know what I'm saying? It's candy or whatever. She'd be like, "Oh, here's the pink one." You know what I mean? And it was never no. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Yeah, yeah. So, and I ensure, like, even when, like, she's 10 now, I got a 15-year-old as well. Like, even like, I don't know how y'all was raised, but when I was raised, it was um a lot of cleaning on Saturdays, loud
Yep.
music, and so I ensure that I annoy them with those same things. I'm vacuuming loud, I'm banging pots when I'm cooking or whatever. So the first time they hear a man say, "Nah, I'm not cooking, I'm not cleaning, that's for a woman," they gonna revert back to, "Nah, my dad did this." So I just want them to be in a position to know, like, yo, these things are life skills. These are human qualities, not just gender qualities. And I think if more people adapted to that, it'll be less confrontation, less friction, less patriarchy, and less, just a constant battle of, opposed to a lot of unity.
Yeah, yeah. And again, I think you have such a unique perspective because of the experience that you've gone through and the work that you do. So I'm curious, from your perspective, what would you say is the greatest threat to Black and Brown men's mental health?
The perception of others, to be real with you, because
Mm,
oftentimes people are trapped in that. Like they can't, like it's so many variables of identity that people don't get to within themselves because they're worried about what the next person says, opposed to living for themselves or living for their own happiness. A lot of people don't even know what happiness is. So that fulfillment is not there. So think about the people, let's say this guy, athlete, $100 million contract, still not happy, but outside looking in, bro, you just signed $100 million, but he's putting on this show and still not happy. Or this guy, they'll say, oh man, you get any chick you want, man, he's still not happy. He always feels alone, because that fulfillment is different. So again, I think that perception of others is probably the greatest threat to not only men but just people in society, trying to live up to other people's expectations opposed to being their true authentic self.
Yeah. I feel like that's exactly what a lot of therapists, right? That's the goal. And this is why we don't come from a place of being an expert on anything in your life, right? You are the expert. We just have to help you tap into that expertise because we have been socialized and we've had certain experiences that pull us away and make us feel like we have to be this way. We need to do this. We need to act like that. And I think about how often we don't feel fulfilled because we are trying to fit into the narrative of everyone else versus who you really are to your core. So I think that's a really good way to kind of say that is just, it's a human experience, like you said, to want to fit in. We don't want to like be isolated or feel alone or, feel like people don't get us. But a lot of times you have to kind of lean into like who you know yourself to be versus trying to like fit everyone else's standards.
Correct.
So that's good. Um, why do you think it's so important for men to heal? I think me and Elisa always go into like conversation around relationships because that's what we do. But from your perspective, like what is why is it so important that men need to like take their mental health, and I appreciate you saying physical and emotional health seriously and really put some work into that.
Yeah, yeah. Because of the pressures that society places upon men. I mean, realistically, if you look even from religious standpoint, that context is filled in most of the religions, over 100 of them. The context is filled demand, demand, demand. So that right there can be demanding if he is trying to live up to those expectations of the text, even though a lot of it is patriarchy. And then from a societal standpoint, like we were just talking about, the ideas of masculinity or the ideas of the man is supposed to provide or the ideas of like you're the man, you're supposed to always be whatever it is, whether it's prideful or hold things in, like those things are harmful, so that's why it's important for men to be able to step back, debrief, reset, and just analyze where they are within the context of where they want to be, from a holistic standpoint. And to also recognize too, like I think a lot of people need to recognize is like healing is not a destination. Like it's something that you have to continue to do
yep.
over and over. So I don't want anybody to feel like I'm healed. What's next? Or I'm there. Like, nah, continue to do the work. Continue to and advance that. Continue to like challenge yourself to get better at something else, whether it is emotional, mentally, or physically. And that way you'll continue to always grow. You wouldn't put yourself in a specific box, based on those things. So I think a lot of it goes back to that. But I think it's definitely important to understand that from the pressures of society, from um, the pressures of religion, the pressures of just having to be upstanding all the times, it create, a certain barrier towards men, which in fact um, hinders the mental health. And of course, now it's so many studies out there that saying the mind and the body connected, it trickles over to the physical health and vice versa. Heart disease is the number one killer among men, and you can get that from stressing or being hypervigilant, just being
Yep.
overstimulated. But we also know a certain diagnoses too, where if you're hyper vigilant, overstressed, and all of those things, it can affect your mental. So the mind and body is together. So and they work in tandem at times. So we just have to ensure that we're taking care of all of those things and not just one of those things.
Absolutely. We talk about that all the time about taking this holistic approach to the work or to ourselves and to our healing and to caring for ourselves, because you can't have one without the other. We just like we have these systems, right? Like our body is a system, and so one part is stressed, the other part is going to get stressed as well, and it'll just show up in different ways. And I think a lot of the work that I do with my own clients is in recognizing what's happening in their bodies first. I think, especially because sometimes we're not aware about what the thoughts or the mental, the emotional piece of it. So it's like, but your body will do what it needs to do to get your attention. And so a lot of the times, if you can pay attention to what's going on with your body, that's going to give you an indicator of what's happening mentally and emotionally. And I love what you said about healing not being a destination,
Yeah.
because it's not. And I we have to remember that, especially when we go to therapy, because then we can get really impatient with our process. Like, well, when am I going to get to the healed version of me, right? And I've tell clients all the time, like, stop thinking about it even in healing terms, and like what you said, James, in growth terms. Because if
Yeah.
I think of it like that, then that should never end, right? Like, I'm gonna keep growing until right, like until I die, right? Hopefully. It's like you look at the tree and you're not like, well, when's it gonna stop growing? Well, it's not until like something happens to it that it can't. So I think when we take that perspective of growth, it gives us more patience with our process, and it can also reduce the chances that we have of experiencing guilt or shame when we have setbacks with our work.
So, and not only that, even if I, just so I don't know if your audience know, like none of this is like rehearsed or whatever. But if I'm using your example of the tree and do an impromptu, what you call it, simile or metaphor, you got to think when you said the tree stops growing, that's not really true. Like we visually see it stop growing, but the roots of the tree continues
Right.
to
That's
grow
what I'm saying.
underground.
Yeah.
So your roots, which is your internal, all of those things got to continue to grow. Regardless if you are physically or mentally feel that you already exceeded your growth potential. No, the internal growth still has to happen.
Yep, that's what I'm saying. Like it just doesn't. It just gets, if anything, you see these 100-year-old trees and they are more
Right.
solid than anything. Yeah.
Hmm.
Right.
Go ahead, Ebony.
Oh, all I was gonna say is I forgot. I forgot.
It'll come back. It'll come back. So, with all this in mind, James, let's say we have somebody that's listening, and again, thinking about the men that might be listening out there, what signs do you want them to look for that they might need some outside support? What are some of the signs that they can start to look for?
I mean, so the funny thing with that, like I'm sure y'all probably get this a lot too. But a lot of wives are drag their husband to couple session, or either a lot of
Yep.
parents drag their sons to these
Yep.
sessions. Hey, he need their. So I tell them honestly, like I can't help anybody who don't see issue with the actions, or don't who I can't help anybody who don't want to change, because it'll be too much resistance, to be honest with you. So, but I encourage them to one ensure that they are safe. So make sure that they're in a position to where they're not going to be exhausted mentally or physically, or even put themselves in a position to be abused. And that can be domestic violence, intimate partner violence, or just emotional abuse. As far as like if that man feel like they're nagging or they're annoying or trying to be overbearing, with assisting them and getting help. But I would say for the fellas, you know, if it is something that you feel like you're constantly hearing other people say, hey, you might need to talk to somebody, or you've been doing XYZ when you used to be doing this, or you just internally know, like, I'm intentionally pushing people away, or I'm not feeling myself. You know, you can do that self check in with yourself. Um, talk view your appetite, see if you still, you know, eating all three meals or eating more or less than you used to. You know, same thing with your sleeping patterns. Are you able to sleep? Are you able to fall asleep on time, or are you waking up throughout the night? You know, you can check in with your body and see if there is a difference, and from there you can do potential research and see what else it is that you need to do, or what else it could be to look like this. In addition to something I always talk about is, of course, get your yearly physicals, you know, because early detection can help in many situations. So even if it's not a mental issue you're dealing with, it's probably or could be a physical issue you're dealing with. And we just established earlier that the mind and body is connected. So we don't want things to carry over when they could have been prevented. So I definitely would say, you know, once you do that self check, you realize that you may be potentially avoiding something or somebody, or pushing people away, whether unintentional or intentional. It's time to, you know, stop looking out the window and look in the mirror.
Oh, I like that. Yes.
That's really good. That's really good. So we want to go into a couple of our favorite questions. So we talked about your journey in therapy, your journey in becoming a mental health professional. Why do you think therapy is dope?
I think therapy is dope because it's now migrating to inclusive space. And what I mean by inclusion, like, it's a lot of LGBTQ plus therapists coming that are here now. It's a lot of vocal therapists that are here now, whether they are Black, Indigenous, or Hispanic. You know, so it's becoming more than just them old white theorists. You know what I'm saying? And that's something that I spoke about within my graduate program. That's something I speak about when I'm doing speaking all over the country. And that's something that I definitely don't subscribe to, because I'm me. You know, I normally have my grills in, but I got a grill, I got tattoos, I use a lot of urban vernacular, and none of that makes me any less than those old white people who had concepts, you know.
Right.
Um, so I feel like therapy is dope because it's becoming inclusive. And not only that, like, my hope is that it's not just a trendy thing. Hopefully it's here to stay, because you see a lot of uh, you know, socialites, entertainers, and celebrities hopping on board, and athletes. So hopefully it is something that they genuinely feel can help society, and they don't just feel like, this is a trend wave. I can use my numbers to, you know, get whatever case is, because I've seen it both ways, and I'm sure y'all seen it too. And I made a video about this, like, probably 6 months to a year ago. Like, it's so many different celebrities that post or tweet and say things about the field, and you know, you'll probably look at it like, bro, we here. What are you talking about? You
Right,
know what I'm
right,
saying?
right.
So
We're not new to this game.
yeah, yeah. But I made that reel or that video because there was a lot of therapists getting discouraged behind that. You know, they got this $80,000 student loan debt. They've done case studies. You know, they in the trenches working, underpaid, insurance kickbacks and all that. And then this person with, you know, a lot of social media happiness sent out one tweet, and now everybody gravitating to it. You know, so it can get discouraging to my fellow therapists, but I like, to me, that's why it's so dope, because it's us creating this space for you know, for that journey for the others.
That's
Yeah,
right. That's
I feel
right.
like as you were talking, I kept thinking the we also are able to tap into us being authentic, right? Because before it was definitely like you should not. It shouldn't be about you, right? Which is still not about us. But if I tap into my authentic self and I show up, and if I make sure I make it clear I'm a Black therapist, I love working with Black couples. You know, like, then I get to work with people that I want to work with, and they see this is a person that actually can help me in a certain way. And I feel like before it was have the same basic pictures on your website, right? Don't put any identifying information on there, and just kind of erase who you are as a therapist. But what we're saying is the more that we show up and are authentic, the more our communities is like, oh, that there is someone who I can resonate with, who gets me, who I might feel more comfortable talking to, and it makes them more likely to even try therapy.
Definitely, and I think that's the approach that should happen.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and even in grad school and other places, and when I'm talking to different therapists, I'm like, yo, that's the dumbest thing ever to have a neutral, for me, because
Right,
I
right.
know what I was seeking when I was in the system, when I was going
Yeah.
to therapy. Like, why would I, like, what I mean? I want to ensure that I can connect and relate to this person who's treating me. You know what I mean? I'm paying you to treat me. Like, so if I can't even identify you based on your website or based on your theoretical orientation or the work that you've already done, then I know if I would view it as I'm gonna look for somebody else, then imagine how the person who doesn't have those experiences would look at it like, you know what I mean? So I always thought that was a weird thing when that was the issue in grad school. Like, hey, you wanted to be a neutral, like, nah, like
Right.
to me, you want to show yourself. You want to, like, the shoes behind me. You know how many young people I connect with just based off that?
Right,
Like, how
right.
Yep.
many
Yep.
and for me, like, I guess is a good thing, but at first I view this as a bad thing, right? But now I accept it and I embrace it. But normally times when I get a client, it's because they've already had two or three different therapists.
Yeah.
And and the parent is like, yo, listen, we tried two other people, they didn't work. He didn't talk, he didn't engage, it just didn't work. What else? We're gonna try you and see what happens. Or either that again, that wife or that partner, listen, I don't know what's wrong with him. We've been together. It's not, And so by the time they get to me, and the parent is sending an email or a text like, I don't know what y'all doing in the session, but he talked all the way home, or he's not doing this no more. So those things are to me like a good thing now. But I always viewed it like that. I'm a what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
just I'm the last line, or
Yeah.
I'm like a leftover. Like, I could have been,
Mm.
you know what I mean? But now I know, like, I'm happy to be in this position
Yeah.
because, they're making milestones, they're growing not only for themselves but the people vicariously around them. And most of that comes from rapport building. Most of that comes from the connectability and the universality and the growth of me just holding them accountable,
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like you've answered our next question, James, because clearly what you have come to realize is that you're dope. You're not a leftover, right? You're not the
Right,
last line. But we
right.
still gotta ask you, why are you a dope therapist?
Um, because I'm authentically me. I'm not trying to be like the next person. Um, I genuinely want to assist people in their growth. Whatever that looks like. Like, we're all human. We all have different resiliency levels. We have different competency levels. So I believe, I'm just trying to find my own pocket of peace and spread it. I'm not stepping on anybody else's toes or invading anybody else's space. I just want to ensure that the people out there can grow from me, from you, from the next people. So that's why I'm dope.
Exactly. That's awesome. Okay, so we are wrapping up. So please tell people, how do they find you if they want to work with you? What are the steps? And then what other products and things that they can buy to support you?
Show them your shirt. Show them your
Oh,
shirt. Scoot back so they can see your
Oh yeah,
merch.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah, yeah. There you go.
yes.
yeah,
Mental
yeah.
health.
So, of course, it's easy to hit me on the website that has everything. So www.mentoheal.com, mentalheal.com, and from there you can subscribe to my YouTube. You can purchase a shirt. You can also get a copy of my book, which is Man, Just Express Yourself. So if you have a son, a brother, father, uncle,
Love it.
or a men's group, Man, Just Express Yourself is an interactive planner guide for boys and men to better express themselves. So oftentimes boys and men don't know how to articulate what they're going through or how they're feeling. So it's interactive. They got an option to write
Oh,
out their
nice.
answer or draw out their answer.
I love
And
that.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
yep, yep. You can get that on Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, Target, Walmart, pretty much anywhere books are sold, including my website. And while you're on my website, also I created a board game,
I
which
love
is
that.
called Cheesy Dates, which is An interactive board game for adults and couples, to have that spontaneity, those intense questions within the relationship. So, of course, it comes with the board, which is 18 by 18, same size as your Monopoly board. Then it comes with the dice, the pawn pieces, and two different card decks. So it's a question card deck. I don't know if you can see it because of the light.
Yeah, yeah.
And then it's a date card deck. So
Love it.
oftentimes people run low on spontaneity, so it's different ways to spice it up. So of course you can have different date ideas, but the questions in it on the other side of it is ones that you should ask throughout your relationship, the beginning of your relationship, which is beneficial. So you can play this with your girls' night, your boys' night, your individual date night, or with other couples. And most of the questions came from things that I've heard doing couple sessions. So you'll be surprised of how many couples have been married but have a traditional mindset, or you married now and you realizing who this person is after the honeymoon phase. So that's why I created the board game, so people can interact. Like, and one quick story, I know y'all got to wrap up, but this couple was married for 5 years, two kids. The husband put the wife through school. She got her bachelor's, whatever the case is. And he wanted that same opportunity now that she was fresh in her career. So one of the reasons why they were there was because she replied to him, like, I'm not taking care of no grown man. So
It's a
5 years
common,
of,
it's a common
Mm-hmm,
story.
mm-hmm,
yeah,
mm-hmm,
yeah.
mm-hmm,
But
mm-hmm.
with that, 5 years of marriage, two kids, he put her through school. That was her response. So, just stuff like that. Like, I'm sure if he would have asked questions prior to them even getting together, like, what would what I mean? Because oftentimes you think like, yo, this will happen. But the view, it might
Yep.
not, so you
Right.
should ask. And I know it can be uncomfortable. That's why I put it in the game for them, so not only can they ask each other, but if other people were playing and interacting, they can have different perspectives. So the board game is doing pretty good. It also just will be featured on a series and on HBO Max. So I'm looking forward to that.
Sweet.
That's so awesome.
Yeah, yeah, it's a dating series that's coming. I want to say they start shooting in July, um, but I'll reveal more information like once that actually happened. We signed the contract and everything, and I signed NDAs and stuff, but I don't know when the actual show is going to be aired, but it's going to be on HBO Max.
Nice. I love that. I love that. So
Yeah,
lots of ways to work with you, lots of
right.
resources that you have for us.
And make sure to follow him so that you can keep up with what he has going on and all of
Yeah,
the.
yeah. So the website has the IG on there as well. The IG is MEN_TO_HEAL. So,
Mhm.
but if you just type in mental heal, I'm sure it'll pop up. But MEN_TO_HEAL.
Right. And we'll make sure to have all of that in the show notes, of course, so that you can go and follow and support James. We really appreciate you for doing this. This is such a good conversation. And
Mm-hmm.
we will probably continue to be interacting with each other as we continue to grow. So thank you so much for joining us today. And we appreciate all of you for watching. You can always follow us across social media at Melanin and Mental Health, Melanin Health on Twitter, or you can head over to melaninandmentalhealth.com to find our dope merchandise I have on the Melanin Mental Health shirt. To find previous podcasts, or if you're looking for a dope therapist, you can check that out there as well. So thank you guys for watching, and we'll see y'all next time.
Bye.